This is Red Ice Radio. From the apparent to the esoteric. RedIceCreations.com.
It's great to have you with us today. Thank you for taking the time to tune in to Red Ice Radio. Our website is RedIceCreations.com. Please go there to follow our latest updates and for more radio, commercial-free for you to enjoy, stream or download directly from the website. My name is Henrik Palmgren and we are coming to you from Sweden on the Scandinavian peninsula. And we say a warm welcome to everyone tuning in from around the globe. It's now been almost 2 weeks since the attacks on Norway, Friday the 22nd of July, and as more and more information comes to light and also being buried, we are today going to run through what is known at this point about the Oslo bombings, the shootings at Utøya, the motives of the accused Anders Behring Breivik, and the possibility of him being a victim of mind control. We are going to discuss his manifesto 2083, a European Declaration of Independence. We'll also talk about the inconsistencies, the strange action by certain people in the right places, and how this tragedy now is being used for political purposes. Finally, we'll look closer at the symbolism involved in this massacre as well. We have with us Rauni-Leena Luukanen-Kilde, a medical doctor, originally from Finland, but she is currently living in Norway. She was the chief medical officer of Lapland, and now she is probably more known for her books and lectures on mind control and conspiracies. Her work also includes parapsychology and out-of-body experiences. Stay with us for the next 2 hours. Well, Rauni, it's good to have you back with us, of course. When we talked with you last time in May, we timely talked about mind control. We talked about the school shootings in Finland and the gun laws and the consequences that this has had now. But just here we are, basically a few months later, faced with one of the biggest massacres since World War II in terms of Norwegian history, and I would reckon the history of the European continent as well, at least this kind of crime. It's an incredible situation. And of course you are in Norway yourself. What's your first impression of all of this, Rauni, as you began to see the news unfolding and so forth? What's your first reaction when you saw all of this?
When I heard first, of course, about the bombing, so-called car bomb that devastated the city in the middle with all the government buildings, I thought that was very strange when it was followed with this shooting of the youth on the island. And immediately the first thought was, this man is mind controlled, and this is planned a long time ago. This is not what the official truth is coming out in the mass media. I was just convinced immediately that there's a lot behind, that they are hiding from the general public, and they still do hide. So I think it is a tremendous operation to cause trauma, to cause political gain, to maybe give kind of a hit to Norway, because Norway is today, on the 1st of August, pulling out all its flights from Libya, and up till now Norway has been the country that has been bombing Libya more than anybody else, almost 600 hits. And just now I heard that on the 22nd, which is the same date of the massacre here, on the 22nd, Norway was bombing Libyans' water lines and water installations, so that 75% of the houses in Libya are now without water. And it was stated that 90% of all of Libya is now without water. Now that is atrocious. So there are many things that are happening. On the other hand, in the island, it was very soon revealed that the foreign minister, Gahr Store, had given a talk, and it was publicized, and there he supported Palestinian independent state and Palestinians in spirit. He said, in spirit we support. Now that definitely is not very, very favorable for Israelis, I don't think. So there are a lot of things that are tying up. It is not simple.
Absolutely, I totally agree. We have the NATO/CIA connection. We have the Palestine-Israel conflict being, waged on Norwegian soil pretty much at this point. And I want to run through some of these details later, just as you mentioned, and that there's much to this as well in terms of the timing of all of this. But if we begin kind of at the beginning, then I guess in terms of the events that unfolded on the 22nd, one of the first things that I did was to kind of analyze the material that was available at the time, made a video about some of the inconsistencies that I saw in terms of the bombing alone, and try to point out that it was strange that there wasn't any, big gush in the street or crater or what have you. But this has consequently, obviously, more material has been coming out all the time, and many things, as is pointing to the fact that there might have been a car then, might have been placed very, very close to the government building, the H block building as it's called, but there's still so many questions remaining, of course, about who allowed it to be there. And ultimately, obviously, the thing that will answer these questions is if we ever will get to see some of the CCTV, the surveillance camera footage. Do you think that we'll get to that situation, Rauni?
Well, not right now, because investigations are going on. Of course, they will hide. But as for the crater, I paid attention because the net magazine Nyhetsspeilet.no was writing about this incident, and then there were many people writing and asking, why is there no crater? Why are there no signs in the street that there was a car bomb? And after these writings, 6 days after, it was on the 28th, VG, Verdens Gang, the biggest newspaper here in Norway, showed a video, and there was a huge crater, and they said it exploded inside the road, inside the asphalt, and went into the garage of the building, of the government building. Now, why would it take 6 days to show that after people had criticized that there was no signs? Then a bomb expert was saying just recently that it seemed that the bomb was inside, and of course that may be, of course, the fire that was upstairs there. And many of the glasses, the windows, they also went outside into the street, like, instead of also going inside. So, of course, when they blast, so they go all over. But there are many, many questions that do not fit with the official explanation. Absolutely,
I've been looking at the material from the crater and the hole or the gush in the close to the building. And one thing, obviously, that someone pointed out is even the way that the roof is sloping downward, implying, and again, this is just speculation, understandably, but implying that the force might have come from top and actually gone down, creating this kind of crater as well.
Exactly.
But the question is that still remains for me, of course, is that apparently one security guard lost his life during this, of course, and this might have been the guard that actually went out to take a look at the van, and I don't know how the security was at the time. But the big, question for me is, of course, how can a van park there? We might be talking about a minute and a half in total, though, that he drove in the car, parked it close to the building, basically just jumped out, and a minute or a minute and a half later, it exploded, which is, of course, very, very short time. So, understandably, this would have been difficult for the security people to actually do something about it. What do you think about that, Rauni?
Well, he has been in the videos, at least according to newspapers, that he was filmed, but not with a car or something. At least no news said about that. But he himself has been not shown, but been stated that he was there. Now, like it says that first he put the big manifest into internet, then he made the car bomb explode, then he ran into the car 40 kilometers, took the ferry to the island, and then started shooting. Now there's something that doesn't fit. So a lot of questions are there. Of course, it's mostly speculation, but I'm convinced that the truth is coming out slowly, and I think those who were all behind the whole thing, not only him, I mean, he is a mind-controlled patsy, it's totally clear, but those who planned it. So that I don't think they realize that people's awareness has risen from September 11th, when people were shocked and knew nothing. So people start asking questions. And, of course, to cause trauma for a whole nation, that has not happened in Scandinavia ever, to this degree, not after the Second World War.
Yeah.
So to keep on this trauma, every day the news. Every day there are concerts and speeches, and people are remembering those who are dead, which is fine. But it also keeps it rolling all the time.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
the thing that it hit me right the next day, that when they first had, of course, announced that these government buildings were hit, then they announced, of course, later that so and so many people, and the figures were totally wrong.
Yeah.
That can be explained in the chaos, of course. You can't count everybody. But they did say that 86 died. Now the police says it's 68. Now, in all intelligence operations, you put everything upside down, and 86 and 68 is exactly upside down. But the main point was that in the news, then all the news were concentrating on the island and the dead young people.
Mm.
So the shift of the focus from the government buildings came to the human side of it, and that was very well done. And nobody, really talks so much about the government buildings anymore. It's always only the dead and the wounded.
Yeah, that's right. I've been trying to look into the timeline, and I'm still working on this. I haven't been able to detail everything. Apparently, there was a 3-hour delay. The police claim that they have obviously caught the cars that he was renting 2 Volkswagen Crafter big vans. One apparently that housed the bomb, and then one he drove out to the island, and then there was a third car involved, a Fiat Dublo or whatever it's called, which he drove lastly, I think, from his place in Rena down to Oslo before the attack, basically. And I'm personally wondering as well, obviously, where did he send out this manifesto, as you pointed out, from? Did he do this at the apartment of his mom? It's speculated that he stayed there over the night. But in any regard, I'm not sure that the timeline makes sense just quite yet, because there's a 3-hour delay, if you will, in the operation, and he claimed that he was delayed. That's all I could have been able to read from the paper so far. Do you have anything else to point out in regards to the timeline, Rauni?
No, but except that I just heard, was it yesterday, New News or something, that he's driving from Oslo to the island, to the mainland, next to the island, was delayed because of a car crash. Now, I don't think, why are they giving that information now and not in the first days? So I don't believe what official explanations are. But it was interesting that a day before, because in Rena he has this farm, he has had it for about a month, and they were finding later explosives there. So there was an earthquake there the day before.
Yes, that's right.
So that's very
right.
strange. And also it's very strange that in Oslo people were reporting black helicopters, a lot of helicopter activity in Oslo. Why? Before.
Well, there was a bomb drill, obviously, as well, and I haven't... Do you know what building this was at? Have you heard about that drill that was ongoing a few days, I think, before?
No, but if you say that there was a drill, in that case, it's exactly the same scenario like they always have, those who are behind this, because the drill was also in September 11th. Remember, Dick Cheney and George W.
Right.
Bush were sitting. There was a drill at the same time as the planes officially crashed. In London, when there was the metro accident, there was a drill with bombs going, plus the real bombs going. So I didn't know that they had a drill here. So they used the same. They always use the same scenario because it works. Yeah. And a few days before, I was very surprised, and I looked up, because there's a lot of chemtrail activity, and that was a lot of chemtrail activity around Oslo also, which of course is military activity. But I heard some very hard sounds in the sky, so I went out, and 1, 2, 3 almost black-gray bombers went very low over my house. Very low. I mean, I was shocked, and they had no signs. No Norwegian flag or nothing. It was just gray-black bombers. And I thought, that's kind of a warning sign. What is going to happen? And they do talk about, black helicopters in the States, that are doing things when something is happening. So there is definitely a military thing involved.
So
and it looks bad.
Absolutely. So what if we look little bit of, obviously, what we can point out as well is that there was a maintenance being done on the at least on the R4 building on the right hand side opposite to the H block building, which is where the kind of the main or the majority of the damage was done to, basically. But in the opposite way, there was some kind of maintenance being done, and there was some kind of underground work, I believe, was happening underneath the buildings, which adds to this pile, obviously. But can we talk a little bit about fertilizer bombs and maybe go back to Oklahoma City and compare some of the things between here then? And because one of the questions here, of course, is how much damage can a fertilizer bomb do, and how far does the shockwave go? And I'm not an expert on this, obviously, and I don't know how much you know either, Rauni. Do you think that this is possible? Is it plausible, a fertilizer bomb doing all this damage that we saw?
Well, locally, I think, but why would it do it so that they were heard kilometers away in other communities around Oslo and all the city of Oslo, if this is true? Because I'm very skeptical about the official news in the mass media. And I'm not an expert on bombs, so I really don't know.
Yeah.
But it sounds that there's something that is not correct. And what is not correct in my mind is that the whole thing about a bomb is hoax, because it seems that it was done with Tesla technology, with HARP type of technology coming from the skies. And of course, that you cannot oppose. I mean, how could we, or how could anybody? And we had a clairvoyante also in Nyhetsspelet.no. She has said before this that she has seen that it comes from the sky. And I immediately, when I heard about this, I thought, no, this is HARP type of technology. They're experimenting, and the car bomb is just a camouflage. I saw a thing that supports this is that I saw a TV. I don't have TV for various reasons, but I went to a friend and saw a TV, and there was a quick show of a car. And it was very interesting because I had just been to Amsterdam to a secret space program where they showed, surprisingly, September 11th damages which I have never heard of. That, many blocks away, the cars were without engines. They had melted or dematerialized or whatever. And of course that came from the sky. It didn't come from any planes or the burning of the skyscrapers or something. So that was for the first time I saw what the cars look like when the Tesla HARP technology hits the ground. And in this Oslo TV, one of the cars that I understood would have been the car bomb. It was it was missing the roof, but the underneath, the underpart with wheels, it was intact, and the roof missing was like cut with a laser. And it was all brown, like it was burnt. And I thought, oh, this is exactly what I saw in Amsterdam.
Are you talking about the car that was kind of lying on its side?
The car that they probably showed that was the car bomb.
Well, I obviously you're referring to the work of Dr. Judy Wood, who we've had with us on the show.
Yes,
this is
right.
Richard Hoagland that went through some of that material in
right.
Amsterdam. This is about directed energy weapon. And, so far I would have to disagree with that analysis because I don't see it. I see that something must have gone off on the surface. I've had several people writing me, obviously, when I did this video, and some excellent information have been coming out, including some people actually writing me from Ireland about when the IRA were performing some of the car bombs there as well. And in some cases, you are left in a situation where basically you have nothing left of the car. And in this case, we have small fragments lying towards the side of the building. I'm not saying that another type of weapon was used as well to create this blast, but what I'm saying is what I'm seeing at this point is there must have definitely been some kind of surface blast, i.e. a car bomb, if you will. The question is, could this have caused this much damage? Because
they need to camouflage the whole thing. That's for sure.
So obviously, much of this, hopefully, then will be revealed when we get to see some of the CCTV camera footage as well, because there's loads there, but we'll continue to run through some of these, inconsistencies in the story and try to detail it. Should we move on to Utøya Island, Rauni, or is there something more you want to mention about the bombings right now of the government building? So it took him quite a bit to drive out to the island, obviously, and the stories that we've been getting right now is that the main point here, obviously, is that the police have been criticized for taking up to 90 minutes to get to the island, while at the same time a media helicopter was there even before police filming this thing. Have you heard anything about explanation-wise why it took so long for the police to get there?
No, not really, because I don't believe what the police says, actually, because when people were trying to call the police, the children, the teenagers at the island had called their parents, like one father was interviewed, and so the father called the police trying to tell them that, there's this bombing going on. So the police refused to take the announcement and said that children have to call themselves. And then this was in Oslo police, and this island belongs to the area of Buskerud area, and they didn't take any calls. People tried to call, and they couldn't get, to the police. So to me, it seems that police slowing up of the actions is deliberate. That's what they've done in these kind of actions. Like if you remember the murder of Olof Palme, it took a long time before the police comes.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's why people, get confused, and the man who is shooting, he gets more time. I don't think this was a coincidence, and especially when the shooter was dressed in a police uniform. They always use symbolism, always the symbolism, which is incredible. And of course, the symbolism for a police uniform, in my mind, is state, which is behind in a way.
Yeah.
So no, this is just a false flag operation in my mind.
The Norwegian police, the equivalent to the Delta team or whatever they call that, said that there was no problem, no delay from their point of view in getting. They had a proper boat and everything was in order. It was just that they basically weren't called sooner to the location to get out there and to get help.
So why did they refuse to take their father's announcements?
That's
because
right.
The children have to call.
That's right.
So the police does not tell the truth. Of course, they can't tell the truth, that they were maybe involved somehow, especially when eyewitnesses say that there were more than one who was shooting.
Right. Two shooters have been reported. What do you make of this, and what have you heard so far about that?
The same.
Yeah.
The main thing is that the police insist that there's only one, because this is the one killer theory, which they always use, like in Oklahoma or wherever. There's only one, because that's easy. That one who is a mind-controlled patsy will admit anything he is programmed to say. And the others are weighed down. So things are not the way we are being told. But luckily, I think, things are coming out. More and more people are asking questions. But the thing is that the Norwegian people are, they're very unaware of these kind of atrocities, and nobody can believe that police would be against, or police or the military would be against their own people. I mean,
right,
this is atrocious. They can't take that.
And also, of course, Rauni, what this would entail is obviously just to have a few so-called right people in the right places in order to prevent a time delay enough in certain areas, just to make this, for the operation to go through, basically. But the eyewitnesses had some interesting stories, obviously, about the two shooters, because they were convinced they heard, gunshots coming from different places, at the island basically at the same time. Then what I heard afterwards, in hindsight, because that's another problem here, of course, that we're faced with as well. Are they piecing together this story for us afterwards? Should we, rely more on the stories directly as they come out? Obviously, we have to take into account the fact that these kids they're traumatized. They're scared,
definitely.
without witless, So how correct is their memory? How correct is it going to be able to listen to this? So I take that into account as well. I'm not, jumping to the conclusions here. But again, one of the eyewitnesses I heard in hindsight said that he had been told that the one shooter had apparently taken off his police uniform at some point, jumped into a boat, driven around the island, jumped back to the island, and now in a different outfit started shooting at people there. And that's why, they got the impression that there was two shooters. And I couldn't help to, think about the fact that he might have been told that afterwards by the police. At the same time, if that's what's really happening, this is a, really slick psychological way of doing it by the shooter, if it's just one guy, right?
Right, but I don't believe in that. I really don't. I think he was really shooting, and if there was another one, he was also shooting. No, there are so many things that are unanswered, and of course it's speculation from our part too. We were not there.
That's right.
But those who were there, they are traumatized, but they do remember also. And if they are not mind controlled, if they are not beamed for EDOM, electronic dissolution of the memory, which can be done to them too, so they don't remember. And when you're in terrible shock, it may be that you don't remember things correctly.
That's right. Did you hear about the other person that was shot in, I think it was Sandnes? A few days later, there was apparently a break-in at a house, and one person was shot in the head, basically at point-blank range. This obviously have been, understandably in that sense, buried in the media because of all this other activity. What if that was the second shooter right there? They were taking him out. Have you heard about this, Rauni?
I heard something like that something only that somebody was shot, but I didn't pay attention because I didn't even think that it would have any relevance to this thing. Yeah, you bring that thought up. That could be. It could be. I'm going to. It could be.
I'm going to link up that story.
But we'll never get to find that truth out if it is. I never thought it was, contacted with that, but we never know.
We never know. We don't know right at the moment, anyway. Do you think that we can attribute some of this to Scandinavian culture, Norwegian, Swedish, culture, if we or Finnish as well? In that sense, if we look at the way things have been handled, there is a tendency to be maybe slightly slower on these things. We don't have the preparedness that maybe other countries have. People can't put this in the framework of we acting like the United States or France or Germany or England or something like that. It's a different speed to things up here. And furthermore, the way that the material has been released in the media has been showing the same signs of this as well. If we were in Germany, France, United States, you would perhaps see another kind of drive from the journalists who in many cases don't have a government-funded, papers and state-owned television channels, like we do here, where basically we have a set of journalists who are sitting around waiting for the authorities to pre-approve material that is released, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but one thing that struck me was that for 3 days, the PSD, which is the civilian secret police of Norway, did not react. And even Anne Holt, who is a criminal author, not criminal, but writing about criminal things.
That's right, yeah.
And she was for 2 months our justice minister, until, in my mind, she was beamed to bleeding so badly inside because she tried to take an order for the secret services and their criminality and their criminal actions and whatever, and so she had to resign. So she came out now and said that just a minute. Now I'm blocked. Somebody doesn't want me to say what she said. Yeah, she was very much against or criticizing the PSD, the secret police, that they have not opened their mouth for 3 days. And then it hit me that why haven't they said anything? Anything, whatever. And then the Janne Christensen, it's a lady who is chief of the secret police now in Norway. She came out and she said it is not possible to prevent something like this unless the population is microchipped. And then she added, but we don't yet, think that could be done or will be done.
Yeah, well,
imagine. Now that is something. So that is coming because that is already planned in the United States. Obama's health law, which has not been accepted in the Senate, as I have understood yet, there, as a first nation in the world, he says he doesn't use the word microchip. He uses another word, but it is a microchip, that it will be compulsory for all Americans to have a chip.
Some of the first experiments on implants in this way was done in Sweden, I believe. I think in many regards, the Nordic countries might be a spearheading some of this actually. What do you think, Rauni? Yeah,
that's true, because already Olof Palme gave permission to implant people in the prisons and in the old people's homes in 73, I think it was, 2-3. And as I have understood, Norway has many sleepers, and I call this serial killer a sleeper who was awakened up. And how do they get them? Well, through vaccinations. It's not a coincidence in my mind that Bill Gates was here some time ago, and he wants the population to be microchipped with vaccinations. He said it officially. Also, George Soros was here, and he is originally Hungarian, Illuminati, of course. He was here, and I was told from Denmark that Prime Minister Stoltenberg had a meeting in Switzerland with Fogh Rasmussen, NATO's chief. So, some big things have been sort of planned.
Yeah, I mean, even Alan Dershowitz was in Norway recently too, speaking to the Chabad community in Oslo, I think.
I don't know about that.
Okay. So this is interesting here that we have a situation also now then when the police is starting to, today this was released that they're starting to confiscate, I think all the cell phones, iPads, cameras and what have you basically in order to collect data of the accused's movements on the island, which of course also could be about deleting maybe sensitive data as well, about a second shooter maybe? Who knows? What do you think, Rauni?
Well, they might find out something, but today's paper, VG said that now Norwegian people, according to Gallups, they want more severe punishments, and of course punishments never work. I mean, I don't care how big a punishment you have, it doesn't prevent somebody who is criminal doing it. And they want more and more surveillance, and that's dangerous. I think that's exactly what happened in the States after September 11th, Patriot Act. People are willing to give out their privacy and just to get what they think is security from the police.
Right. That's right.
And that is a big, big, big mistake. And now it is big headlines in the paper today that people want, more surveillance. Mer overvakning, like they said. Now, I think that is very, very dangerous because that means, of course, of everybody, and that is what the chief of the secret police was hinting to, but everybody should be microchipped. That's how they can prevent things.
That's right.
So things are really going to be bad if these things, go as they have planned. And of course, this is part of the planning.
The police apparently knew the gunman's name as well. They called him out, and he basically surrendered at that point. That's pretty interesting.
Yes, I heard that, but it has been denied afterwards, so I don't know what the truth is. It was announced, I think it was in England, what's his name? Snow or something, the journalist who announced that the police called him by name. And afterwards, a day or two after, it was denounced that, no, this is not true. Now, that would be against the police if it was true. So, of course, they have to deny it.
Okay.
So I don't know what the truth is.
Yeah, that's right. It's muddy at this point. If that is the case, then could that potentially have been attributed to real, quick, excellent investigation on the part of the fact that they immediately checked the CCTV security cameras, saw the license plate of the van, and checked up where this come from, called or contacted the car rental company, and they confirmed right away who actually had leased these two vans. Is that a possibility, do you think? And therefore, that's the way they could have known his name?
I never thought of it, so that's probably speculation, but why not?
Yeah.
But I never thought of it.
That's the only thing that would explain it to me. And again, I'm not putting it past anybody, of course. I'm not here to discount the way things are happening or even how it unfolded. Because again, if we can still go back to this idea, Rauni, that if he's a sleeper, if he's a mind control agent, he might have pulled all of this off himself. And it does make sense, and the timeline is there. But it still, implies that someone else is behind his programming, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. You don't program yourself, and it takes years to program somebody. And who is doing the programming? Normally. It's very interesting that I heard that our justice minister would have called and asked Mossad to come here. I read it, in fact, a Mossad representative is coming.
Yep.
And then MI5 and CIA. Well, of course, they're always here hidden, but I mean officially now.
Right.
My question is, what are they doing here? Are not Norwegians good enough to investigate by themselves, or are they coming to investigate the man, reprogramming him or programming him, or what are they doing? Because they are experts. They are the ones who are doing all these programmings. But it was mentioned that in internet that everything has been deleted about him in internet, but something was added while he was in jail already, that on the 23rd, something that he was the conservative Christian or something like that.
Yep. And
then it was stated that he was I heard the conversation in radio by an expert that he was many times, all the time, looking at some videos, and they called them war videos. And this expert said, no, it's actually not a war video. It's a video which has a team, and then there's a hero in the team, like he would be the hero of the team. But there's a team, absolutely a team. And this video showed how a lonesome man goes to an island and kills the people. I mean, that was taken away, because I don't think that many people, even if they're ignorant, wouldn't start thinking that how is it possible that he looks like, of course it's programming. And of course there are other means how to program him too, and it takes years and years to make that much hate like he has. And the question is, well, since he is very pro-Israel and anti-Muslim, so why didn't he attack a mosque?
Absolutely. The first
why
question
did he
right
attack
there.
white youth?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he sees that the political, left is at the root of the problem here, but still, it doesn't make sense. And I want to, really detail with you later on as well in terms of the inconsistencies of his manifesto, if that's even, written by him. We don't know at this point, and I would suggest that it's not actually looking at it.
I agree with you.
This whole thing might be just a concoction, if you will. But the question here obviously is the muddy past of Anders Behring Breivik, as the media obviously now understandably begins to plaster his whole life and detail every aspect of his background in the media in an effort to try to understand what triggered him to do this and what the point. What some of the points are here that might have caused this these things to stir up in him. But a little bit more here first on the island. I want to ask you about that too, because let's see here. If we look at the gun laws in Norway, if the security guard that was there, and interesting enough, this was Trond Berntsen, the stepbrother of Norway's crown princess Mette-Marit. And if he had a gun, because he was there as a security guard, he used to be a police, I think, as well. He could have actually prevented this whole thing, not the whole thing, but at least all the shootings on the island from happening. So what? And now, of course, Rauni, they're turning this against, on the flip side and saying, see how bad guns are. See what they can do, what damage they can do. But what if you reverse the situation and say instead, no, actually, if you outlaw guns, then only outlaws are the ones that are going to have the guns, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, but that is the aim in the States also, and in Finland with the gun laws, because that's number one aim, to take away all the guns from the civilians, so that nobody can protect themselves against government terrorism if that is coming. And like in Finland, we had this. I would say this proof of it, because when we had the school shooting, the first one, next day a NATO chief came. They're trying to push us into NATO, but the people don't want to. We don't want to go under American control, and then they wanted us to change the gun laws, and they only changed the very, very little, because we had said no in Finland to changing gun laws. And so in European Union, it's no. If one country says no, it's no. So they had to do something. Then came 1 year after another shooting, because we didn't do enough. And now they have really restricted the gun laws.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 years or something you have to go to a shooting school or whatever. So there's always that behind, that take away guns from the civilians so they cannot protect themselves.
I think one law was already passed. I think it was in Australia, maybe New Zealand, because of the Norway shooting, and they forced in some kind of a ban on I think semi-automatics or something like that. We can see that this has also effects worldwide, and that's why it's so interesting with the story. Why this guy Anders Breivik, who had this pen name or whatever as being Andrew Berwick, that he wrote everything in English. Everything was targeted towards the international world, if you will, as well. It's very, very calculated, if nothing else. That's
right. Well, he is a Mason also, and then it was saying that how can you be a Mason and nationalist?
Yeah.
Because Masons are international. But of course, this is international now.
Well, and to me, I mean, again, he is now kind of turning into some kind of enigma. I would say, as recent guest brought up, it's a Gordian knot. This is something that people now will be analyzing for decades to come, as people are beginning to look at his manifesto and try to weave out and understand his psyche and how things are because there's nothing logical if you begin to deconstruct the reasoning, both that is within the manifesto, his actions, and the consequences now that this is going to have. I'm not saying that we're dealing with a rational person, of course, but some commentators out there have pointed out that he is a brilliant, strategist and things like that, and that doesn't make sense. So what I wanted to ask you more about, though, before we leave the island portion of this, is some witnesses have reported that he was talking into a headset at some point. Right, I've heard the same, that like somebody was giving him instructions, and he was talking. Yeah, that's right. But you don't need a headset, actually, because if you're mind controlled, you need just a chip, and that doesn't show, and you don't even need a chip. You can be mind controlled without. But especially when he, if he had these earphones, so then that shows that something is very, very wrong. Somebody was steering him officially. But it has also been stated that he has different personalities, which always is done with mind control. They change your personality. You can be A, B, C, whatever, and they're totally different, because his schoolmates said that at school time he was very helpsome and helped others who were not so good, etc. So he was a good guy, and now he's a monster. So that's what they can do with mind control. They can do it to anybody, to you and me and whoever. But it takes time, and it takes many years of programming the frequency of hate. How do you, if we then begin to talk a little bit more about Anders specifically, and there must be then something in his past that suggested he gotten into the hands of some of the people who would do this, right? I mean, how do you think that he ended up in the situation he did then, if we look at it from the point of view that he was mind-controlled, Rauni? Well, he also lived in the States, and that's one reason. And his father was a diplomat. And I think that many exchange students who go to the States, they may be microchipped without their knowledge, and then activated later. I know of some cases in Finland. You can't say where did this happen, but in the past years, it's clear that it has been programming, and they have succeeded. But the thing is, they do not succeed if the truth comes out to the general public. That's right. He is not alone, that he has been programmed, because all these serial killers who are mind controlled, they are actually victims themselves. They're robots, no feelings, no remorse, and they have been programmed like that, so they are victims even if they are killing. And this doesn't come out very often. Everybody just hates them. But, he's a victim. Absolutely. I wouldn't put it past the some elements within Norway of possibly doing this themselves. We detailed a while back here now, because of the shootings and the bombing here, about some of the Norway's hidden history, if you will, or some of the experiments that was made on children. They were subjected to LSD. Right. They were even sexually abused, and this was specifically against the German Norwegian, those who had relations and got children, and they were being looked upon as being basically the shame of the nation, right? Have you heard about this?
That's
Rauni?
right. Yes, definitely. And there was even a government committee. I was expert in for 1 hour. I told what I knew about it because that was in 2003. Their report came out, and it was about the psychiatric abuse before 1975. And because it is a government committee, of course, what they did not want out that there has been abuse. On the contrary, again, upside down. Officially, they try to dig into the abuse, but unofficially, they have to prove there is no abuse. So that was the conclusion of the committee, but there were the last few pages, and I have put them into my last book Skyldeværden. It's about these abuses and mind control. Mm-hmm. It's in Norwegian. And that is the experiments that were done by Dr. Sem Jacobsen with American military, with NASA, with the Navy, all American funding on American people, like the divers who were implanted with electrodes, and 18 of them have committed suicide, and they're trying to get some compensation. They didn't get it in.
They got denied, yeah.
That's right. So now they're in Strasbourg, and I doubt if they get anything there either. So this is part of Norwegian history. This is abuse of certain elements in the society. And like I said, with Bill Gates here, and with swine flu, which had a microchip and all that, I'm sure we have a lot of sleepers.
Well, of course, we're not we're not implying that the methods that was used. I mean, again, we're talking about things that were after World War II and some of these children. So we're talking about the 50s and 60s. That's a long time ago. The technology has obviously advanced from that point. But
exactly. Now it's microchips.
That's right. And the point here being, though, again, that if you look into what's called Norway's Lebensborn, and Lebensborn came out of Heinrich Himmler's idea of his eugenics program, basically. But one of them who were abused said that many of the Lebensborn children claimed that they were sexually abused, beaten, mass raped, urinated on, washed in chemicals, and also this report then suggested that they've been subjected to experiments with LSD, and for anybody who looks into the MK Ultra program, mind control program, knows about the ties to the LSD and the LSD experiments right there.
That's right.
So that's one thing to keep in mind, implying basically that if this is the history, what is saying that these programs have ended and we might have a similar situation. You said that Anders went over to the States. I read yesterday, I think it was, that he apparently had plastic surgery done on him. Did you hear about that?
I have
forehead
heard that,
and nose,
but I don't
things.
know if it's true.
Yeah. That's kind of strange in one way. I mean,
he's a good-looking guy. So, but mind you, the first day after this incident, so Dagbladet, a daily newspaper here, printed his picture, and in that picture, his face, it was big. There were 2 white pricks in his eyes, like microchips. Now, I don't know if that was done graphically or if it really was there, but I thought that somebody wants to signal that, hey, he was microchipped. And interestingly, I referred to it because it already said, also the article said that he was a third-degree Mason, etc. That newspaper has been stolen from me. I was going to take it here and read some parts of it to you, but it's gone.
Do you recall what parts?
It was
do you recall?
the day after, which means 23rd of July.
Yeah. He apparently went to England, and obviously he looked into the Knights Templar, and if we go back to that idea again, then that's pretty interesting to me as well. That he dressed up as a Freemason. He had some kind of military outfit with all the medals on it.
Right.
He was dressing up in some kind of biohazard suit or something like that as well. It's almost like he's dressing up in these different costumes to kind of also, in one way, whet the appetite of all the conspiracy theorists out there. Because on the first level, it's incredible that some media did not report on the fact that he was dressing up in a Freemasonic garb. I think what I've read, primarily the British papers did this. In some of the CNN articles I read and so forth, they said, instead of saying that it was a Freemasonic suit, they said a proper suit or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so they refused to detail that. And
well, he was even in internet with his, leather square apron for the Masons that I saw a picture of him.
Absolutely. And the thing is, again, then, that he included these images at the end of the manifesto, and this is where people got this from. And obviously, if you look at the pictures, they've been photoshopped, and he said this himself, I think, as well, that in the manifesto, that he's been cropping out himself basically from the background, and he tried to make it look nice, but it's like it's ready to make for the media to just use the wizard tool in Photoshop and grab him out and put him in whatever situation they want. Basically, it's something weird with it. Why would he include these images of himself at the end? Look, I'm a Templar. Look, I'm a Freemason. Isn't that strange to you, Rauni?
Yeah, that is strange, but I don't know about his psyche. I heard in a radio a psychiatrist whom I have met once, and in a meeting with the Justice Minister and Police Department, she was talking about psychiatric cases, and I got up and I opposed her and said, why don't you make any differential diagnosis to psychosis and mind control? I mean, why don't you even consider that mind control exists? So the speaker in the Congress, he stopped me from talking and said, well, you can talk about these details later. Now the same psychiatrist now has stated that she doesn't think he is psychotic, just recently, because his attorney is saying that he is psychotic and he is mentally ill and whatever. Of course, the attorney tries to maybe help him or whatever out of the case, which will be impossible. But not a word mind control. Nobody in this whole affair has said the word mind control except me. Not a word. And that is a word that is forbidden to say in psychiatry. They really don't want people to know.
It doesn't.
And that's very interesting.
It doesn't exist to most people. That's the relationship most has, So.
Yeah, but officially, mind control is a non-lethal weapon in the military. I mean, you can just blast that out to them.
Sure.
It is a non-lethal weapon in the military. So why do you say it doesn't exist?
That's right. Well, I mean,
and it has been taken 2002 in Geneva in UNIDIR, United Nations Institute for Research Disarmament. It is included mind control as a weapon of mass destruction, just like atomic bomb.
Isn't that interesting?
So it is real.
Do you think
but people don't know about it, and they don't want to know about it. It's so horrific.
That's right.
That they can change your attitudes. They can read your thought signals. They can make your love into hate. They can make, if you're a leftist to a rightist. They can make you, if you're heterosexual to a homosexual. They can change your sexuality. They can do just about anything with mind control, and that is so devastating that people say no, it doesn't exist. I don't want to hear about it.
That is very, very interesting that you mentioned that, because consequently, as people have been digging into this, the Anders past here now as well, it seems to be like there is a multiple personality within there, contained within there. Apparently, he was photographed at a gay pride rally in 2004 in Oslo. I mean, does that imply that they were trying out potentially then to change his sexuality or to turn him homosexual for a little bit, like, just as you suggested? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. And his stance political wise of this back and forth all the time of its witnesses in Rena, the city where he lived. Apparently he went to a Muslim owned restaurant and ate there, and they said that he was very friendly all the time and no problem. They said it was one of the nicest customers they had. And then the other day he's a Muslim hater. You know what I mean? It's very the more you begin to analyze, turn you
into anything.
That's right. The more you begin to analyze the personality behind there, it doesn't make sense. Go ahead, Rauni.
Yeah, no. I just say that is so scary technology that I can well understand people who don't want to hear about it, but then they are putting their head in the sand, because I'm always saying, hey, do you want this to be done to your children? It can be done. And they just don't, no. And like I said, now when the chief of the secret police says that the only way to prevent these kind of things is to microchip the general population. So that is, like she said, not yet. Not yet, she said, not yet.
Yeah, not yet accepted.
So that is very, very scary. Because after that, we are all robots, and they can do anything, change your feelings and sexuality and whatever.
The lawyer, Geir Lippestad, a Labour Party lawyer, apparently. Why did he choose?
I don't know. I'm totally non-political, so I don't follow.
Yeah, no, I've been reading it, and that was one of the first things that was pointed out, that he's a member of the Labour Party, and why would Anders choose that if that's what he considers to be his enemies? Is that a strategy? Do you think? Is there something else behind it, or why? Doesn't make sense.
I don't know, but remember, everything is upside down. Everything.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. And of course, one thing that has not at all been debated by the media that you brought up before, Rauni, is his pro-Zionist stance as well. And
he's pro-Israel. Absolutely.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah,
and
so there's no doubt about it.
But now he's being turned into a right-wing, Nazi, or what have you. It feels like everybody is looking through, as I said before, the manifesto, and trying to find their piece of evidence for whatever they don't happen to like personally, and project this onto Anders Breivik. You know what I mean? He's like a persona for everybody to kind of hate back,
right.
If you know what I mean.
But they don't use the word Nazi. I don't know why, but they seem to avoid that. Maybe that has a bad cling. But it was interesting that a video was released by the Department of Homeland Security 24 hours earlier, where they said that the type of person they feared most who would carry out such an attack would be just, white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like the Norwegian.
That's right.
So they have shifted their enemy picture, which has been Muslims and terrorists, which almost is the same for the general public, into this blonde, blue-eyed, right-wing young male.
Yeah. It has been a rise, of the right wing in Europe, and I think that there have been, credible points, real concern raised about the way that European society is being, turned in terms of multiculturalism. Obviously, a thing like this will totally destroy any kind of rational debate about these issues now, right, Rauni? Well,
at least it has caused a change in my mind in the Norwegian society towards Muslims, because when it was not yet announced that it was this white, blue-eyed Norwegian, people thought immediately, I did too, I thought, it has to be a Muslim terrorist or something, when the buildings were collapsing. Then it came out later, of course, in the island that who he was. But even in the streets of Oslo, it was stated that some people had attacked Muslims, and a lady, a Muslim, she was saying that she was verbally attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, when it came out that this is a Norwegian guy, so, then all this hatred towards Muslims has disappeared, at least officially. It's not in the mass media ever. And I think in Norway there has been more talk about this Muslim contra the native Norwegians than at least in Finland. We don't seem to have that of a problem with the Muslims as they seem to have here. But now it's gone. And one good thing about this is, of course, the change of attitude, how people started being very lovable to each other, how people started hugging each other in the streets and crying together, and it's a total shock, and they still are in a way. But on the other hand, when you think that they were gathering together, about 200,000 people marching in Oslo, having roses in their hands, it's beautiful, and it is a very strong feeling of unity. But when you think that those behind who have planned all these things, they always use symbolism. So the symbolism of a rose has many symbols. One of them is Labour Party, but so-called sub-rosa, which is a special kind of how would I say, under rose, a word which they use when they are doing covert operations.
Under the rose.
Under the rose, especially with secrecy. The secret services.
Yeah,
I froze when I heard about this, and I said, good Lord, 200 people under the rose, putting up their hand and holding the rose, which is beautiful.
Absolutely.
And they definitely did not know that the secret services had maybe something else in their mind when they were asked to buy a rose or they were given 3 roses or whatever.
This is all very, very symbolic, just as you point out. And again,
exactly.
this goes back to the British. It denotes secrecy, confidentiality, and it's also similar to the Chatham House rule. We're talking about the Royal Institute of International Affairs. We're back to MI5, MI6, things like this right now, being under the Rose Wars that happened over in Britain as well.
That's right.
And that's also why I believe that a lot of these connections right away, Rauni, in the media, was pointing towards Britain right away. And England was drawn into this quicker than any other country, I think, in terms of they were beginning to look at the EDL, who was also heavily infiltrated by MI5 and MI6 as well. Very, very interesting to me. Very interesting.
Well, also Hungarians have this sub-rose connection, which is dealing to conspiracy. And I don't think it was a coincidence that George Soros was here, and he is originally Hungarian. So again, maybe I'm going too far, but it just struck me that, hey, wait a minute, there is a connection possibly. And there's also a connection with sub-rose to the comet, which they are predicting that will come. Mm-hmm. And hit the Earth soon. Well, personally, I don't think any comet or asteroid is doing that, but we can arrange it, like President Reagan said, that we can arrange with Gorbachev when they were talking about Star Wars. And now it seems that since NASA has given officially warning, already the internet, to its employees about dates for disaster preparedness, telling them what dates they really, can expect something, so they should have preparedness, water and batteries and torches and whatever. Mm. And the date was 27th of September, the first one. Then it was 17th of October. Then it was 5th of November, 23rd of November, and 21st of December. And I wonder, how is it possible that NASA gives warnings by dates unless it is not himself arranging these things? If something falls from the skies, we can't tell the dates so exactly. So anyway, people should be prepared. If nothing happens, good. If it does, be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Trying to keep all my thoughts in my head here as we go through this. There's just so many inconsistencies, so many things that we should highlight. Let's just talk a little bit more about, when we're on the topic of symbolism then. July 22nd, the King David Hotel bombing was an attack carried out by the militant right-wing Zionist underground organization Irgun on the King David Hotel in Jerusalem on July 22nd, 1946. So we're talking about exactly 65 years later, Rauni. And there's more to this story, obviously, because again, just as you said, the foreign minister Jonas Gahr Store was on Utøya the day before, July 21st, when there was a pro-Palestine rally being held there, and also on July 18th, Norway was basically ready to recognize the Palestinian state. Right. There's another connection in terms of how some of the oil contracts or an oil fund, I think, was cut off to Israel. What do you think we're looking at there? Is there any symbolism here? You mentioned Mossad before. Could this be some kind of retaliation? We can go back even to the Oslo Accords, right, Rauni, and talk about that, the importance of that.
Well, at least I say that I've noticed that they always use symbolism and they use numbers. Number 22 is often used by the military. Often military intelligence, that means the secret services. You said number 21, that is 2 plus 1 is 3. That is a very, very number one symbol in my mind. So they always do things at certain times. Timing is extremely important. And this blast was about 1530, 1526, 1520. There are different, numbers given in the press.
77, I think, is the latest number now on dead. Yeah.
But 15 is 5 plus 1 is 6 again. And 30, 3 again, or if it's 2 plus 26 minutes after. So that too. So they are doing using the numbers that have been associated with their own secret codes, so that people who sort of know about these codes, they know that this is an operation for them. But of course, majority, I would say 99% of the people don't know anything about these codes.
No, of course not. We detailed with another guest, Richard Hoagland, here recently about how the sun entered Leo and astrological, significance on that on the 22nd. We also talked there about the connections to September 11th, and again, if we put this in hindsight or in perspective, I want to bring up, for instance, the Swedish Social Democratic politician Anna Lindh,
yes.
who was murdered over here on she died on September 11th, 2003. She was actually stabbed on the 10th, the evening, I think, before as well, by this very, very interesting character, Mijailo Mijailovic, and he was basically stating, and this is up front, it's in the BBC, that he was hearing voices in his head. He had nothing personal against Anna Lindh. He just couldn't stop hearing these voices, and he went out that day with a knife in his hand, feeling threatened, and then basically when he saw her, he started stabbing her, basically. Mind control, obviously mind control.
Absolutely. And total mind control, Patsy.
And she was, obviously, what I want to connect this with is she was very, very much a supporter of the Palestinian state as well. She was highly critical of Israel, and she was destined to, I think, rise to the position of becoming prime minister, basically, in Sweden. And she was taken out. That's just the way it is.
That's right. And as of numbers again, so the 22nd of July now. So 227. What is that? That's 11. And this year is 11. So it's 11/11. It's very interesting.
It's very, very interesting.
They always use the numbers and the codes and the colors. So there's much, much more than people know about it. And it was interesting that I just read in internet that the Russian FSB, Federal Security Service, which was KGB, has been stating that Jens Stoltenberg, Prime Minister, 2 days, again, number two code, days, put an urgent call to Putin, begging Russia's leader to help stop the events that left almost about 100 innocent civilians dead. Now, if this is true, that is big news, because then he knew, but he couldn't do anything. Because, like the army said, when I was saying to somebody, well, he could have allotted the army and evacuated the island, but probably did not know about details. Mm-hmm. And the army chief, General Diesen, who is no more chief, but he went on pension just about some time ago. So he said the army could not have done, anything or prevented anything. And again, if you think that the attack against the government buildings, if you think it came from the skies, well, of course, then you can't prevent it, especially when you don't have any planes here yourself.
Sure.
But this article, which was printed in the European Times Net, and I don't know the real background. It says something that what does it mean.com has given this information, what KGB, SVB has been saying. So they say that the FSB further reports that this false flag attack on Norway was a clear textbook example of an Operation Northwoods operated, designed and prepared by U.S. military experts. And Operation Northwoods was a series of false flag proposals that originated within the United States government in '62. The proposals called for the CIA or other operatives to commit acts of terrorism in U.S. cities and elsewhere, and this is important, in order to influence public opinion, and have been used many Western governments over the past 5 decades. They've been used in Turkey, in Indonesia. They've been used all over. Mm. And then it continues. FSB experts note in this report that the false flag attacks on Norway further mirror those of Oklahoma City and Port Arthur in Australia. Mm-hmm. Yep. A large vehicle first holding a powerful fertilizer bomb was able to gain undetected entrance to a protected government center. 2, the armed police response to an ongoing massacre of civilians was delayed for reasons still not explained. 3, a lone suspect has been identified as the sole perpetrator of the attacks, contrary to witnesses' statements that more people were involved. And 4th, the lone suspect is denied the right to an open hearing before the public. And then it says, this report also notes that within hours of these attacks occurring, a virtual flood of information relating to the suspected mastermind of this massacre was released, identifying him as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegian, etc., etc.
Mm.
I mean, this, it makes you sort of breathe deeply.
Yeah. I have my questions about what does it mean.com. I'm trying to find that the call there. I mean, on the source article, the urgent call to Putin there, discussing the energy, the Russian-Norwegian energy cooperation that they were discussing at that point, and I'm going to link that story up so people can read that for themselves and take a look at some of those links there as well. And see if you find it.
It says that to the reasons behind this attack, this FSB report states, it is a desperate attempt by British, European Union and American banking interests to force Norway into their union, that's the European Union, which Norway is not a member,
that's right,
in order to loot their sovereign wealth fund of its estimated 1.5 trillion in wealth which without the entire Western economy may collapse. Important note, the FSB says, is that what is being done to Norway has already been done to Libya when in what is now called the financial heist of the century, these same elites launched an unprovoked attack upon this North African nation and promptly looted it of nearly $150 billion of their sovereign wealth fund in order to sustain their crumbling empire.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty heavy.
It reads right, if I put it that way, obviously.
Exactly.
I mean, it reads right in the sense that it's understandable why the powers that be would be interested at this point of is to get Norway into the European Union and transfer more of their funds, obviously, into the coffers of a failing empire that they're trying to build right now. But how still though? There must be an interface here between the threats, if you will, then from the let's take this into account and let's take the suggestion that this is the international community, if you will, then on one level threatening Norway. Look what we can do, basically say. But there must be a communication at one point suggesting, you know what, we were behind this, and if you don't comply, it's going to happen again, right? I mean, would this be taken to Stoltenberg, do you think, or anybody else within Norway?
I have no idea, but I'm sure these kind of actions are going to increase. Because so far, nobody has been taken for September 11th, except patsies, of course. Patsies, but those who are behind, they are never taken. So why wouldn't they continue? Because they are never taken. Their patsies are taken. And patsies are condemned. But not those who plan. And if you think, when I was in this non-lethal weapons conference a couple of years ago in Germany, in Ettlinger, when this American colonel demonstrated by saying, everybody says, who are they? I mean, who are they who are doing all these things? So he drew a square into the with his finger into the air, and he said, in the middle of the square there is a symbol of New World Order. On the side there is the symbol of Illuminati with the Star of David, and on the other side there is CIA, FBI, and British intelligence. They are they. So how do you stop atrocities which definitely are done in the whole world by the secret services? I mean, you can't stop them unless there is a total change in the whole world. And maybe the change comes through tremendous catastrophes, that all our normal systems will collapse. And then, of course, the secret service systems will also collapse. But that could be arranged. I mean, maybe that happens this fall or next year, whatever.
Yeah.
But something is being planned, which is very, very big. And, of course, those who survive, they have changed their attitude, like the people in Norway now have changed the attitude. And there's a lot of love coming around, which is very great. Understanding, love, and compassion towards other people, which did not exist before.
You pointed out an interesting thing in terms of if his motive is to, if we look at what he says and the official version, the manifesto, etc., his attitude towards multiculturalism and so forth as well. How he must, if he is the brilliant strategist that he must have understood that, of course, that these victims now, then the people he killed, are going to be turned into martyrs for the cause of it'll be turned into a political agenda. They want to use this politically now, and as you pointed out, Rauni, the Labour Party now has had a tremendous spike in support, and people who were on the fence about this before has now rallied behind them, and it's given even more energy, in the opposite direction than he wanted to. If he was smart, he should have seen that coming, right? That doesn't make sense.
I don't think he planned this. I said he's mind controlled, and he does what the planners want, and the planners wanted this result. The Labour Party had 28.9% before this, and now it has 38.7.
Wow!
So over 10% in just a few days.
Yeah,
you know,
it's incredible.
So I don't think he planned anything. He is a patsy. He's a robot, and he does exactly as he is being told, straight into his brain.
Okay, so if that is the case, that means that those who would like to see this particular government to remain in office in Norway, are they to be blamed? Are they in one way behind it?
I wouldn't blame anybody because I don't know. But those who planned it, they should be blamed. They have different agendas, like taking away the weapons and taking away the privacy of people, maybe microchipping, all that. They have very different agendas. And this probably is one of them, to keep Labour Party on stage because it was going down. And the popularity of Prime Minister Stoltenberg was going down. Now it is up to the heights, 92%.
Yeah.
So, something has happened.
Yeah.
And it must be in the agenda that this is a way how you can change people's attitudes and minds. And of course it works.
Absolutely.
It's a psychological warfare at the same time.
That's right. And again, I also see playing into this the furtherance of basically, stifling criticism of things that basically whatever he wrote about in the manifesto that he was for or against is going to be used in the 180-degree opposite direction.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
If he's critical of the European Union, yay, let's go European Union. If he's against multiculturalism, yay, let's go multiculturalism. You see what I mean? It's a 180-degree emotional turn that is happening right now as well. And I find that interesting because I question, of course, if he even wrote the manifesto at all. And people are looking at this now, this is the Bible, if you will, into the psyche of this man. But, I mean, he borrowed parts from the Unabomber. We know that. He was another LSD mind control, individual, basically. But how do we know that he wrote the manifesto?
I don't think he did. But we will never find out until the whole thing, breaks down. When the whole scenario someday is going to come out. Like, truth always comes out at the end, but it may take years. I don't think it comes out very soon. And on the political level, it will take decades before things come out.
Yeah.
I mean, officially, September 11th is still in the official version. And it was 2001.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people know that the official version is false. But still, official version still stands.
Well, history and truth is not the same thing, obviously.
Yeah, right. Depends who reads it.
And depends who
how
writes
history
it.
Is interpreted.
Writes it as well, yeah.
Yeah, right.
He seemed like he was military trained. Some people reported about him going over in very cold, very calm. I mean, think about that. 69 people then, I think, now in total he shot on the island. Walking around, some of them he walked over and apparently shot them twice in the back. Just moved on to the next person and in some regards called them towards him because he was in his police uniform. Hey,
Yeah.
come here, I'm here to help you. It's not that's not a normal psyche. It's been claimed that he was taking some kind of drug. There were some other things involved here as well, but still, that's not a normal psyche, right, Rauni?
It's a mind control psyche, and drugs is always a camouflage. Always they say that somebody was on psychiatric drugs, and then that gives an explanation why they behave the way they do. But one word, mind control, it explains the whole thing. everything what he did, everything what he said, how he behaved, and how he behaves now. His own father, according to papers, they haven't met in 16 years. He's a diplomat living abroad, had said that if he had only shot himself instead of all the others. And the mother is in hiding now.
Yeah, well, understandably. His dad pointed out in that regard then something interesting, if you will, Rauni, because many of the other shooters, specifically school shooters and things like that as well, including the ones in Finland, they end up shooting themselves afterwards. This guy
because that's Delta programming. This guy did not have Delta programming, because I told you, they need him. They need him to confess that he did the government buildings. And when he's done that officially, and now they have postponed the real court case into next year.
Isn't that incredible? The media is going to milk this thing now.
Exactly, and traumatize the Norwegian people more and more and more.
And rest of the European, people too, here in Sweden, other countries as well. Obviously, just trickling on down. But
it's psychological warfare. I mean, and it has an effect. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Of course,
it is to scare, to make people just not feel safe. And so when they don't feel safe, they go to authorities, do something. And okay, more and more surveillance, more and more, restriction of your civil liberties.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that this is the aim. They go into fella, in a way that they just fall into the trap.
Yeah.
Which these who have planned all these have made in the first place. And they always use the same scenario because it works. Why would they change it? It works in every country, in every deed.
Yeah.
And people don't know, and people don't understand, and people don't want to think that their own authorities could somehow not want to support them.
It's the most horrible thing ever. And if you admit this, your world will fall to pieces under your feet.
That's right.
Basically. And yes, that's the way it is. This is the true root of terrorism in that sense, of subjugating a people, a population, and it's been going on for thousands of years in different ways. Look at the history of religion. Look at how all of this has been to, basically subjugate the people under the arm of the powers that be, basically. This is the way, it's business as usual, as Jordan Maxwell would say.
That's right, but because we live in a global world, it is the globalists that rule the world. And there are many people in Scandinavian countries. I think we're pretty naive in many ways.
Oh, yeah.
So we think that our government and our prime minister or our president, has something to say. Officially, yes, but unofficially, they do as they're being told.
That's right. And
people...
Sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
No, I just thought that was maybe why the secret police of Norway, the civilian police, was silent for 3 days waiting for instructions what to say.
Well, exactly. And again, that goes back to the point I was making earlier about Scandinavian culture. That is a very, very, subjugated attitude. We're waiting for the authorities to pre-approve things before we even open our mouths, and this goes down to the level of police now as well. And it's very, very hesitant, very, very hush-hush, putting the lid on right away. Why do they put this guy in a closed hearing? I understand the emotional trauma of this situation. I do understand that, but at the same time, if this society is being heralded as being an open society, isn't it in these kinds of situations where it's especially important to open it up and air out the dirty laundry, if you know what I mean, Rauni, and actually, so everybody can try to understand why this happened. But putting the lid on, hushing this up, and silence it further, that's not going to help. They're going to put this guy 4 weeks in isolation now. What's going to happen during that time?
Well, I'm sure they're programming or reprogramming or doing whatever with him. And the thing why they don't want the open hearing, like they said, was that because in the manifesto he has threatened that he is going to, in the court cases, he's going to reveal everything and he's going to, put further his message, etc. So they stopped that. Of course, that's not the cause. The cause is that he might say something that people will wake up. Of course.
What would that be, do you think? What do you mean with wake up?
Maybe he could, sometimes they remember. He could remember his programming. Sometimes they break. The programming may break.
Sure.
And then he may say something which he shouldn't have said to the general public or something. That must be the real reason. The public must not know the real things that are happening. Because, I would say it's like the code of silence. when we were talked about symbolism and roses, so I just heard about the Greek god who was so-called a god of silence, and he was represented as a naked youth, finger over his mouth, and a hieroglyph of a child is youth. So, there, again, a symbolism.
Yeah.
Code of silence, and this is used by the secret services. I mean, it's your hair stands up when you start, digging into this. It's like going into the what you call it, the books that were written by.
What book are you thinking about?
About Dan. What's his name?
Dan Brown.
Yes, he puts symbolism all over, on statues and on names and whatever, and this is what they are using. I mean, if a Greek god is a god of silence and secrecy, which was represented as naked youth, so and the secret services use that. So there is a code there again. But of course, maybe that goes too far. But it's like Dan Brown, digging into more and more, you find out more and more.
Well, obviously, and Dan Brown, by the way, Rauni obviously has borrowed a lot of material from other authors that are not into fiction out there, and we know that now. We've had some of those guests on the program, like Christopher Knight, a Freemason as well, and he understands some of the symbolism that is involved in this, and timing and other things like that as well.
Timing is everything, and who benefits. When you answer those two questions in any terror attacks, then you know. Timing, why was timing now? Well, first of all, it's summer, and people are on vacation. So that's what was the excuse was why police helicopter couldn't go, because the two pilots were on vacation. And also people, because they're on vacation, or the time of the office hours was just about over. And in September, there are elections, and this thing does have a tremendous effect on the elections. And then who benefits? That's the question, who is behind it.
Yeah. Bohemian Grove, apparently ongoing. People have, I think, mentioned that the cremation of care festivities, if you will, happened on July 22nd. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
There's another.
Yeah, July 27th is an important date.
22nd, yeah.
22nd, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's 11 now this year. 2 + 2 + 7 is
Yep. What do you make of? There was this strange reporting that a lot of the youth on the island, because I was thinking about the symbolism again, that were taking off their clothes. There was piles of clothes lying around, and obviously this is because they wanted to swim away from the island. But I'm just questioning the idea of how you reason at that point that, okay, I'm going to jump in the water because I have a gunman chasing me, but I'm going to take off my clothes first?
Well, I did see some, semi-naked youth pictures of them. They were hiding somewhere. Also, I heard that some people were almost drowning because their clothes were so heavy in the water. So that makes sense that you would take away, and jump in. I don't think there's anything else behind it. But
okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But this God of Silence talks about naked youth.
Well, exactly.
This
is so
the God of
about
Silence
it.
and secrecy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a connection, but it's strange.
It is strange, and there is a few other festivities, if you will, that is connected with this as well. I'm going to try this. Another one of our guests, Josh Reeves, did a really good symbolism interpretation of some of these things here as well, and pointed towards the fact that there's another Roman festivity going on. I'm going to try to find that later. If nothing else, I'll link that up so people can take a look for themselves. And it's another one of these Lucretia or something like that. I'm going to find the name later, but it's just interesting to me. How detailed, Rauni, is the art of mind control? What do you think that every step that this guy made was planned by somebody, or are we talking about someone who's suggested a few ideas to him but made him very, very convinced of it? So on one level he actually just acted out these things seemingly on his own and maybe made certain decisions of himself. What do you think?
I think it can be done extremely, extremely in detail. Of course, it depends what kind of programming you are. There are different programs for different people, but he was evidently programmed to kill and programmed for hate. And it can be extremely, extremely detailed, but sometimes they break. Sometimes they do break, and that can disrupt their programming. And that is the danger of those who program, that if they disrupt, something happens, unexpected, whatever. So he falls, it's like a hypnosis, so he falls off from the hypnosis.
Yeah.
And then things may go very, very wrong. But usually they don't have anything to say. They are just biological robots. And they do it, tank, 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 tank. And that's it. And Sirhan Sirhan, who was convicted of Robert Kennedy's murder, he said, "Did I do it? Did I do it?"
Yeah.
See, he was programmed, and I have read about his programming and his doctor who was programming him, and kill Kennedy, like that.
Yeah.
And then when it happened, he said, "Did I do it?" So it's sort of he got out of the programming and couldn't understand that he had killed. So it's a very, very scary technology when it's misused. It could be used positively, that love everybody, all of us, the whole world, love each other. But of course it's not, because it is a weapon against...
Well, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, they shouldn't mess around with those kinds of things. They should let people live their own lives and come to the conclusions that they want to, and live their lives accordingly. But this is, again, about full spectrum dominance, as it's called, controlling all the aspects of human life.
Exactly.
And they're doing it. They're shaping and molding society and the way things are going to turn basically on this planet with the aid of these drones, these programmed individuals, basically. And
right.
The question here then as well is how, because if again I go back to the manifesto, and yes, of course we don't know if it's written by him, but if we look at it in terms of he detailed at the end of this thing as a kind of a diary, if you will, almost, of what he did, how he did it, how he went about with the chemicals, what he did that day, or he went out and ate at this restaurant. It's pretty interesting, because it's almost reads like a, how should I put this? Someone have told him, okay, detail
exactly
what you do,
right.
Detail everything that you do, write it down so that we have that for the record later.
Exactly, and they have, I think, dictated every word he puts into it. He writes, and he writes, and he writes. In a way, it could be called automatic writing. When you do automatic writing, some outer source affects you. Whether it is a good one, like a spirit from another dimension, or whether it is, let's say, a CIA agent who is doing mind control on you. Mm. So it is an outside force that is forcing you to write, and you have no idea what you write. But the text comes, and then you read it, and it makes very much sense. You can get prescriptions or the future, what is happening tomorrow or next year or whenever. You can answer questions and you get answers, and of course then you can see if it is fit, if it's true. So, but it is absolutely an outside force, and of course in medicine we say it is your subconscious writing. I'm doing automatic writing, and I do know that it is not my subconscious, because I don't know those things. My subconscious doesn't know those things that sometimes I get in. Mm. But the main thing is that you are under an influence of an outside force. And if it's a good force, you can use it for healing. If it's a negative one, you use it for mind control. Or they use it. Yeah.
Apparently his farm that he was on as well had been used for some interesting things previously, owned by, there was apparently marijuana, I think, grown at the farm. It had been used by different groups, or if it's just the one, I still need to confirm this, but it was apparently used by other things, if I put it that way, before, to kind of, for potentially the forces behind, the control of society, basically, and they've been using this farm for number of different agendas, basically, and this is just seemed to be the last one, if I put it that way. Have you heard
very
that?
Well be.
Yeah.
The police went there after he was arrested, and they were doing explosions. And it came into the newspapers that some neighbors had complained because they got really frightened, and they had not been informed that the police is doing explosions. But the police stated in the press that they have informed the neighbors. Well, I don't think a lady who is a neighbor will go to the Norwegian press and say that they did not inform us if they really would have. So again, this information from the police.
Yeah. Do you know if it's true if the FSK, the Försvarets Specialkommando, Special Forces of Norway, is close to this area of Rena as well, where he stayed at this farm?
I don't know.
You don't
I
know
don't
that?
know.
Okay.
No. No.
It's just a hint that was picked up in an article I read recently, and I haven't been able to confirm that or find more info about that. So I just wanted to ask you if you knew.
But I remember from the Finnish shooting, I don't think that it was a coincidence that our police special forces were doing an exercise 10 minutes from the shooting place. I mean, it can't be a coincidence.
No.
So, the police is always involved.
It's very, very interesting, this whole story. And again, what do you think about the media, beginning to analyze the story and try to break it down? I think I've never ever seen such an explosion, if you will, in the media of trying to deconstruct this, trying to analyze these things. And again, I go back to that idea that it's a kind of a Gordian knot that if you look at the whole situation, it's like a massive psyop that is affecting everybody and everything, including obviously the media, who is who's putting out all of this information all the time. To me, it implies that it can't just be the acts of one madman, if you will. But if it is, it's quite astonishing.
No, it is not an act of one madman. It is a brilliant operation involving the powers that be, the powers that rule this world. And they are not governments as such. They are behind the scenes, and they force the governments to do what they do. According to this FSB report, Stoltenberg first learned of this plot against his country this past Wednesday, it says, when this happened on Friday, after reading a top-secret report prepared for him by the Norwegian intelligence service on the late March computer attack against Norway's top military leaders that showed them involved in a conspiracy with Britain's MI5 security service and the United States Central Intelligence, CIA, to launch a two-phase attack upon Norway modeled after false flag operations in both Australia and America in the mid-90s. Now, that would show that, the top politicians have really nothing to say. I mean, they can't stop this, even if he tried.
Yeah.
So, there are other people that rule the country.
Yeah.
And they do not rule it for the benefit of the people. They want to diminish, like the UN Agenda 21 stated, if I remember correctly, that 85% of the population of the Earth has to be eliminated. 85%! And they're doing it all the time in different ways. So, for me, this is not positive evolvement and development of the human race. And they do say that we are too many, there are overpopulation. I would say that if we all would become vegetarian, and I'm not, I like good beef, but if we all would be vegetarians, there would be enough food for the whole world. It's true. And why are they now having terrible troubles with dryness in African Horn? Because I heard from a previous high politician in Norway that already in 1979, both the U.S. and Russia were sitting together and thinking of the future of planet Earth, and they decided that Africa as a continent has to go first in their depopulation programs.
Well,
and that's why
they sure have been running that program for a long time already, haven't they?
Exactly. And that's why nobody cared about Rwanda, for instance, when 1 million people died, because
Starvations
Rwanda doesn't have
Ethiopia.
oil or minerals or whatever.
Yeah.
And immediately when there's oil in any country, that's when America comes in.
Yeah.
And the next thing is, I suppose it's Iran. They already have warships there, I was just told, American warships. So if something happens, a false flag operation in the States, so then they, of course, blame Al-Qaeda, Iran, or whatever, and then hell goes loose.
It's good that you bring that up as well, because everybody of all races across the planet are being targeted.
That's right.
Some have been targeted for a longer time, and I believe that the most recent one now, just as you alluded to earlier, is the white terrorists are the next ones now. Look out for the blonde, the blue-eyed, and
That's
in
right.
one sense, symbolically, what better place to begin than up in, Northern Europe here, Norway, or even Sweden in that sense, right? So that's just the latest incarnation of the terror that have been happening against everybody. So all moron right-wing people out there, in that sense, it's just, this has been happening around the world, and everybody's been targeted. Some people have said that, this is just to target the right wing, but I think that as soon as we fall into the idea of left wing or right wing and try to deconstruct what's happening in the world according to this political paradigm, we're losing the plot, because it stretches beyond that. And these two different factions of more on left and more on right have just been used to further polarize people. But if you try to apply that line of thinking, I believe, in this case and many others as well, it's not going to make sense. It's going to be totally illogical, which it is too, because if you look at the manifesto and try to break down, wait a minute, is he right wing or left wing? I'm confused. It doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't matter what somebody is who is doing terror actions. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a Muslim or if it's a Norwegian or a Finn or whoever, they are doing what they are doing, and it doesn't matter what their background is.
Yeah.
The deed, what they are doing, the consequences of what they have done, that's what matters, not their background.
Of course, and of course how this is going to be used by the powers that be.
Exactly.
And then I think you have multiple. I think you have multiple layers of this as well, Rauni. You have, on one level, you have the universalist, the globalist Fabians at the top, if you will, that are having their agenda on how to play this. Then further down the level, all the way down to the local political parties, if you will, are going to use this in a favorable manner for themselves in one way or another. Everybody's going to jump on this. They're circling this like like a corpse now in that sense, and to try to take advantage of picking the bones of this thing. It's horrible to see it as well at the same time.
That's right. Everybody picks their raisins out of the bread. But one thing that I do hope will have an enduring effect, and I think it will, at least for some time, that people are more and more feeling united, more and more feeling that this should not happen, and we should be closer to each other. Actually, I would say love is the key, but it's very, very hard to get that through. But you do get that through pain. And I am afraid that we have to, through pain, learn these basic things of loving each other and thinking of the good things that we can do to each other and how we can help other nations who are not so further advanced as we are technically. They may be spiritually much more advanced than we are. But the good thing about these things is the feeling what happens after war, for instance, or what happened in the big tsunami in Thailand a few years ago at Christmas. People really helped each other. They really sort of changed their attitudes, at least for some time, and this is what has happened in Norway. And I hope that we don't have to go through very, very painful experiences, which I'm afraid we will have to before we change. If we would change our energy into love and light and sending the good vibrations to this planet, that could prevent even any attack. I mean, they could prevent that a gun can be shot. They could prevent that an asteroid hits us, whatever, if we are united. And after all, we are 7 billion people. So we could really do something if we start using our brain capacity. That is our spirituality, our energy. But until now, we don't do that. We fight against each other. Because of religion, because of politics, because of somebody is too rich and I'm too poor or whatever. And that has to change. It has to change that we are all human beings on this planet, and we all have a mission. And that mission is not destroying each other. It is to elevate our standard and the planet to a new dimension. And we do have a possibility to do that without destroying it. But it always hurts when the tooth comes out, and then it has to come out for a baby. And we are right there when it starts hurting.
I agree with you. These are all, constructs that are designed to make us fight amongst ourselves instead of beginning to realize who, that the real enemy is, and look at the top of the pyramid, if you will, and even maybe beyond that, and realize who's pulling the strings, basically, and making all these things happen. And I remember talking with some Americans, and they said that the vibe, if you will, was great after September 11th. Everybody was coming together. It was feeling a feeling of that hasn't been there before.
Same as here in Norway now.
Right, but then this is the sad thing about that, and I don't hope that happens in Norway either, because eventually the frustration, fear, and anger and aggression kind of took over, and I mean, look at the way that society has transformed in the United States and across the world after September 11th, and the paranoid approach that society has now against everything. And now we have to go through these, radiated body scanners just because all of this thing that apparently happened on September 11th, right? So everybody's being treated like a criminal until we're proven innocent, basically. And that's not the right way to go. Absolutely
not. Absolutely. And thank God there's some change coming, because some states in the United States are making it illegal to body scan, and at least to grope their sexual organs when you go through the airports.
Yeah.
And now the employees are getting cancer because they stay there all day, and they get the side radiation, of course. And the radiation is so bad in the TSA the boxes that Los Alamos research has shown that your DNA starts bubbling with those. Your DNA bubbles, your cells.
Yeah.
And they haven't caught a single terrorist with this system.
No, it was shown by... sorry, Ronnie, but it was shown by, I think it was a German a TV program that did a test of this, and it failed. It was the guy actually managed to hit a pistol, I think, somewhere on his body too. So it doesn't even work.
No, it doesn't work, and power explosives don't seem to come out there either. So this is just harassment, and it is money for the guy who owns this system, who was co-creator of the Homeland Security.
Yeah,
Michael Chernoff or something like
that. Chertoff, that's right. Yeah, Chertoff. Right. Chertoff Security.
$150,000 dollars a piece, and if they would use the dogs, to sniff people, for instance, so they cost only $8,000 a piece.
Yeah.
But then these guys wouldn't get all the money, and they couldn't, for instance, sterilize people because it causes cancer. If it causes cancer in the employees who get the side radiation, think what it causes in the people who have to go through, and the humiliation what they have done.
Yes. Yeah.
They took a breast implant plastic from a stewardess because she had a cancer operation, and she said, well, this is, I've had cancer. No, they took it away.
Yeah.
They took away a plastic urine thing from a man who had prostate cancer, and they broke it, so the piss went all over him.
Yeah.
They forced a 95-year-old woman who was sitting in a wheelchair and had diapers to take away the diaper, and she didn't have an extra one. I mean, they humiliate people, and that is, of course, orders. That is we're coming to this kind of Nazi society, and this thing that, everybody should be microchipped, and everybody should be surveilled, and everybody's telephone and PCs and emails are screened, everybody's, by the supercomputers. Now, this is not a society of high spirituality. This is going low, 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 low.
Yeah.
And that has to break. And probably it only breaks through catastrophes, man-made.
This is the in-Nazi, I would call them, the international socialists that are running this now. So I would agree with you. And furthermore, when a weapons manufacturer like Lockheed Martin now wins the contract for $72 million to install body scanners around in the States. People have to begin to question that and wonder why. Why weapons manufacture these radiation firing
because
body scanners?
Because radiation is a weapon.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a weapon against civilian population, and this way you can eliminate people when they get the radiation, which is so strong that it causes cancer and other illnesses. So it's a weapon, and that's why a weapon factory will get the contract. Simple.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I know, Rauni. Why don't we let's try to talk a little bit more here as we begin to run things up here for this time. Then there's a lot of still loose threads out there, a lot of unknown variables, and I'm sure that in hindsight, we'll look back and say, oh, I forgot to mention this in this interview and program, but there will be time to detail some of this further on as well. And please, if there's anybody out there listening and having more information about the case, please send it to us as well, because we're interested in trying to understand what has happened here. But now, Rauni, do you feel that there's anything more you want to mention about how they will try to use this? Let's say in the intermediary here in Norway, maybe, or Scandinavia or Europe. What's the consequence here as well? Stoltenberg said, no, this won't change Norwegian society, but of course it will, right?
Of course it will. It already has. It has changed the attitudes of people, but I think we have covered up quite a bit of the consequences or possible consequences. So I don't think I have anything more to add. And I think actually this is very heavy for people to hear, especially those people who do not know of these things before. Those who have read about these things or are even a little bit inside, they probably don't take it heavily, but those people who hear for the first time that this could have been a false flag operation, they are shocked.
Yep.
So I think we have had enough, and I want to say that the most important thing we have to remember, man is a mind, not a body, like I always say, and when you die, you don't die, it's only your body that dies. You are an intelligent light being with feelings, with emotions, with intelligence, and you just get out of your body. So there is no death. Those who died in this terrible catastrophe, they are fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but it is very, very heavy on their family and friends.
Yeah.
And they should be comforted by the thought that they have not lost their loved ones. They have lost their physical appearance. But they are alive, just as you and I. You're somewhere in another country, and I'm here. We don't even see each other, but we can communicate through the telephone, but we can also communicate telepathically, and that is what they should learn, and then they can have contact with their loved ones who are now on another frequency in another world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good way to mention, and I always want to personally say as well that I hope that no one is offended in any way by this. I mean, that it's people who are at that stage obviously should take a break and grieve instead of maybe wallowing in this information. But I believe it's essential to be able to question these events when they happen. And as we know as well, Rauni, it's at the early stages of this that things are, in most cases, when the most revealing details are put out there by eyewitnesses and so forth, things that cannot be controlled by the government or the media, if you will, but it's essential to monitoring that, and it's a tragedy, and that's the way it is. But I think that once people get over the shock and have given time to grieve, about this, that people wake up and realize who and why this is being done to you and the people around you and to everybody on the planet, basically, because this is just the latest incarnation, as we said before, Rauni, of things that have been going on for a long time.
That's right. And the thing that comes out of this is it unites people in a positive way. And that is what we should have, one united planet. But it has to be done positively and not with force like it is tried to be done now.
Thank you very much for your time today, Rauni. We really appreciate it. And, we thank you for your perspective, adding your expertise, if you will, your theories and ideas, obviously, about some of the things that have happened here as well. Please let us know if there's anything else you want to mention here before we wrap things up with this time. Any of your book titles, maybe, or some of your other work, Rauni?
I'll let you know when my first book comes out in English. I'm just writing it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Henrik.
Please stay tuned to redicecreations.com as we'll keep following the story on Norway. Upcoming guests, we have Wayne Herschel, Santos Bonacci, Alex Putney, John Irvin, Nick Redfern, Robert Bovall, Hugh Newman, Penny Pierce, Kevin Annette, John Coleman, Will Hart, and many others. We'll be back with more shortly. In the meantime, a special thanks to all our members and everyone at Red Ice. Have a great day. We'll talk more soon.